I want to welcome you all to the candidate forum for Mayor of Edina this evening. My name is Debbie McNeil, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters Edina. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization that encourages the active and informed participation by citizens in their government. While the League does studies and takes positions on issues, we do not support candidates or political parties. All of the positions expressed tonight, all of the views expressed tonight will be those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. It's now my pleasure to introduce the moderator for tonight's forum, Judy Duffy from the League of Women Voters of the White Bear Lake area. Thank you very much.
I also would like to thank all of you for coming out this evening. I understand there is a little bit of competition on television this evening, so kudos to you for showing up. Before we get started, I'd like to ask each of you to please be sure that your cell phone has been turned off before we begin. The purpose of this evening's forum is to provide an opportunity to hear the candidates discuss issues that are important to you. We will try to cover as many issues as possible in the time we have. If your questions are not addressed tonight, please feel free to contact the candidates directly. All candidates who filed for office and who will be on the November 6th ballot were invited to this forum. The rules and format of tonight's forum are as follows. Candidates have drawn numbers to determine the speaking order. Speaking order will rotate with each question. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement and 2 minutes to answer a question that has been sent out in advance. Candidates will then have 1 minute to answer each question submitted by the audience and 1 minute to make a closing statement. A League volunteer will time candidate responses and indicate to candidates when they have 1 minute remaining, 30 seconds remaining, and when it is time to stop. Audience questions must be in writing and handed to a League volunteer who is stationed around the room this evening, wearing a button to identify herself. So please get your questions to one of our volunteers. The moderator will ask all questions. The League of Women Voters of Edina determines which questions will be asked and attempts in good faith to cover the topics of interest indicated by the submitted audience questions. All written questions become the property of the Edina League of Women Voters. This forum is being videotaped, and I ask each of you to please hold your applause till the end of the forum. I would like to introduce to you now the candidates for the mayor of the city of Edina. Sitting to my left is Jim Hovland and Linda Masika. The opening remarks for the candidates will begin now, and first to speak will be Linda Masika.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters. They've worked very hard to put this forum together, as they always do, and I thank you, and I appreciate all of your hard work. I'm going to give you a little bit about my background. First of all, I am a mother of 3 adult children. I have 8 grandchildren, one just being born in August, so we have a newborn to cuddle. I was in business for 15 years, from 1984 to 1999. I was then served on city council for 8 years and enjoyed every minute of it. I really had a passion for being on city council. The reason I didn't run on my last term election was because I had worked very, very hard on the comprehensive plan, and I wanted to make sure before I went into a next election that I was ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Hovland.
Good evening, everyone, and my thanks to the League. You know, in some cultures, there's an expression that people use when they depart from visiting with each other, and they say, make yourself better. And that's exactly what the city of Edina has been doing for the last 8 years, is making itself better. We measure that in different ways, but one of the key measures was one that was taken a while ago, and it was that 98% of the people in our town thought their quality of life was excellent or good. That's a metro-breaking record, the old record from St. Louis Park. We have the lowest tax rate amongst comparable cities, the lowest crime rate, a AAA bond rating that we held through the deepest recession since the Great Depression. Progress is measured by the improvement in the quality of people's lives, and we have been improving the quality of those people's lives over the last 8 years, and that is why I am running for re-election. We are on a wonderful trajectory. I want to keep that trajectory going, and I hope that you will support me in my endeavors to be re-elected as mayor of Edina. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This question was sent out in advance to the candidates, and I'll read it now. Municipalities sometimes look to public-private partnerships to make it possible to bring new fee-based amenities to the community. Using Edina examples, what are the benefits of such public-private partnerships? What are the risks? And please be specific. Mr. Hovland.
Thank you. P3s, or public-private partnerships, have been around for a while. A great example in our region, our neighborhood, is really the Bren Road Bridge, which is a combination of construction costs being paid for by United Healthcare, the City of Minnetonka, and MnDOT. Usually you use them when you are looking for an alternative method of finance or procurement. Some of the city council members mentioned the Hornet's Nest, which I think is a great example of a public-private partnership. What happened there was a bunch of citizens came forward and said we needed some new facilities out at Braemar to upgrade them, to make them state-of-the-art. They put up 25% of the upfront funds, which was close to $800,000. It's a $3.6 million project. $2.8 million is borrowed. It's a 20-year bond, and the payments are going to be about $196,000 a year. Well, what are we doing to make sure that we can get those bond payments made? We're surcharging the Edina Hockey Association and the Figure Skating Club $29,000. We have 2 leases over there with 2 entities that are coming into the facility, General Sports and Velocity, which is a dry land trainer. That's going to be another $150,000 on 10-year leases for each of them. And then we have ice rental increases of $70,000. That's $250,000 in revenue to help make sure that we get a $196,000 bond paid every year. Now, someone might say, what's the risk? The risk is that we've got these 10-year contracts, and we need to make sure that we keep tenants in there at all times. The key with a public-private partnership is that you never lose control over a public asset or a public good, and that's the thing to keep in mind when we go forward and see some of these opportunities that are in front of us, such as the one Ann Swenson mentioned, which is the improvement in the parking facilities down at 50th and France. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Linda Masika.
Well, there were many really interesting projects that I could have chosen, but I happened to choose a project that Ms. Swenson spoke of earlier, and that's Centennial Lakes. I think of Centennial Lakes as sort of a phoenix rising out of a gravel pit, and it was something that became Edina's crown jewel from this really vast sea of nothingness. We got this beautiful crown jewel of a park. Edina worked in a public-private partnership with United Properties, mostly United Properties, to develop housing, to develop retail, develop office buildings, and they did it all by creating these wonderful public amenities that made the value of building on this property much, much higher. The benefits that the buildings were able to get from this project were walking paths, a stream that controls water retention, lawn games, all kinds of different things that people can really put their money into, and many things that are just free. Some of the risks that used to come along with public-private partnerships really are no longer there. It used to be that when you had a public-private partnership, you had to put money up front to develop that project. Now we have what is called pay as you go, so that when you put the money as a public entity into a private situation to work together, you then know for sure that that public entity is not going to fail on you and that you will be able to get back everything that you've put into it.
Okay, thank you. The first question from the audience is, how would you define the role of mayor, and how is it different from the role of other council members? Ms. Masika.
Well, the role of mayor really, in essence, isn't any different from a role of a council member. The mayor has neither more nor less power than any other council member. Their vote doesn't mean anything more, but I think that they do have some influence on the council. And like any corporation, whatever you have at the top filters down to the bottom. So if you have a mayor that is very excited about their job, passionate, and really enjoying it, that will filter down to your council members, and they will pick up on that and follow your lead.
Thank you. Mr. Hovland.
Would you repeat the question, please?
How would you define the role of mayor, and how is it different from the role of other council members?
All right, thank you. Well, having served on the council, I can tell you that it was a dramatic difference becoming the mayor. You become the face of your community, not only in your own community with respect to the interaction that you have with a multitude of residents, but you also become the face of your community in the region. Now, it's important, I think, that we're not an island here, and we need to think about our role in the region. I've gotten involved in a lot of transportation infrastructure issues, a lot of economic development issues that are extremely important, not only to the region, but to our city, because as goes the region, so goes the city. And so it has become for me, it's a labor of love, but it's been something that has taken an enormous amount of time, and it is a vastly different role from that of a council person, and you just need to be applying yourself all the time to the common good, which I'm sure is what all the other council persons do too, but it is quite a different job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. What kind of development and redevelopment do you support for Edina? How can you guarantee quality construction and adherence to the adopted strategic plan? Mr. Hovland.
Well, in terms of materials and plans, the council always mandates with any project that we approve that they be built according to the plans and specs that are provided and the materials provided. With respect to redevelopment, and that's what we are in, the phase of redevelopment, I think we have figured out pretty well on the residential side how much house can be built on a lot. There are a couple of exceptions that the Planning Commission is working on right now, but those days of the McMansion strife are largely gone. On the redevelopment side, on the commercial end of life, we're just on the front end of that activity. We're going to see our town reinventing itself in that area too. It's important that we make progress on this and that we participate in it and that we sort of embrace it, but embrace it in a reasonable, logical way so that we have balance with respect to, in the neighborhoods, maintaining a neighborhood integrity, but letting it build in a modern way, and also in the commercial area, that we are mindful of all of the different elements that make a project appropriate, including neighbors. Thank
you. Ms. Masika.
Well, I'd like to address actually two things. I think Mr. Hovland brings up a good point in that in Edina, when we redevelop a home, we do need to have a natural progression so that we are keeping up with our neighbors, so that we have something to offer in our community that is that brings families to the community and that people really want to find in their housing needs. The second thing that I'd like to address is Grandview. And Grandview is a project that I'm very, very excited about. I think we need to have a subtle development there, but we do have some good public land available, and it would be excellent for a community center. It would be excellent for retail, office, and just about anything that you could think of that a developer might bring to the city, and we could look at that and then make a decision.
Thank you. There are a lot of questions regarding height and density in both commercial and residential construction. How would you use your leadership capacity as mayor in this area? Linda Masika.
You know, in this community, I don't think that we're looking for a lot of height and or density. This is basically a residential community. People live here because they don't want an urban environment. I know that the mayor is an urbanist, and that's great. It's wonderful to be that if you want to live in an urban community. If you don't want your legacy to be high rises, then probably you might not be in the right area. But I think that the comprehensive plan pretty much spells out what we can have. We have developed an excellent comprehensive plan, and that will lead us for, what, probably 6 more years into the future. And if we follow that as our framework, as it was set out to be, I think that we'll be just fine.
Okay, Mr. Hovland.
Redevelopment in our town is extraordinarily important. When you talk about height and density, we're talking about primarily projects in the commercial neighborhood. When Member Masika or Mrs. Masika was on the council back in 2008, we went through the effort of creating a comprehensive plan that defines height limitations primarily in the Southdale area. There was one tall building built out there, the Weston, which has become, I think, part of the fabric of our community, admired by many. The hotel is a top in the Starwood fleet, and the McCormick and Schmick is a real success for our town. So what we need to do is make sure that when we're doing this redevelopment, that we do it carefully, that we make sure that we look at all interests involved, but we have to keep in mind that it has to be a win-win. It has to be a win for our town and the people in our town, and it has to be a win for the developer as well.
Okay. If Edina changes the way it pays for streets, which financial formats for street assessment policy would you support? Mr. Hovland.
Well, this is a very difficult question. I know that this is one of the things that Mrs. Masika is concerned about, and we all have been. In fact, when she was on the council in 2005, we looked at trying to change the policy from 100% assessment on the street to something else, and what we ended up doing was adjusting it so that we paid for the curb and gutter. So the city pays for everything under the street, plus the curb and gutter. The residents are still paying for what's up on top, the asphalt itself, and it's gotten more expensive over time. Here's the problem. People have gone before and have paid, and now who wants to draw a bright line on who's going to have this entire city pay for it after the fact? That's the problem. If we're going to try to do it on a going forward basis, we levy $26 million a year. We'd have to, our average project cost per year is about $4.8 million. If you want to raise your taxes 18% to switch to a different system, raise your hand. I don't think anybody wants to do that. I think if you've paid for your street where you drive, you don't really want to pay for a street where somebody else drives. It's a difficult question, but that's the reality that we're facing at the present time.
Thank you. Linda Masika.
Well, I've spent quite a bit of time actually researching this, and so I called a few different cities to find out what their limitations and their policies were. And I found that Bloomington, the residents pay 25% of their street reconstruction, and the city pays for 75% of it. Commercial and institutional in Bloomington is a 50-50 split. In Minnetonka, 100% of residential, commercial, and institutional buildings are paid for. In Hopkins, it's really kind of a mix. There's a cost share with city caps. So residences pay 70%, but there is a cap that they cannot go beyond. And for commercial industrial, they pay 70% with no cap. The most important thing is that there needs to be some retroactive payments. If you've just paid a great big payment for your streets, you need to be able to have some retroactivity to make it, to grandfather you in, to be able to have some fairness and equity.
Thank you. What role do you see for multimodal transportation in Edina, and how can it fit into regional transportation plans? Linda Masika.
Well, I have the distinction of saying that my husband had the first accident on Wooddale Avenue. It was just like maybe last week, and he was driving down Wooddale, and there was all these new stripes, and a car was coming at him from one direction. He veered off to miss the car and hit a parked car and totaled his baby, which was his collector car. Now it's not so much of a collector. Anyway, I think that we absolutely need to have biking ability in Edina, but we have to be reasonable about it. If a street is too narrow to handle a bike lane, obviously we don't put it there. You have to use some common sense, and you can't pick and choose and say that, okay, my church has parking in front of it, it's convenient, and I'm going to say that they can have that parking, as Mr. Hovland did. But no other churches are allowed to have that. So I think we have to have some fairness and equity.
Thank you, Mr. Hovland.
Thank you. I just got to go back for a quick second and say, if we're going to make retroactive payments on street assessments, we're going to create chaos here. It just isn't going to work. The role of multimodal transportation in Edina is very, very important. We know that we can't build our way out of congestion on a regional basis utilizing only bridge expansion and road expansion technologies and techniques. It's got to be a combination of transit and motor vehicle. It also has to have a non-motorized component to it. And that's what's important, I think, right now. The thing that we are working on, if you noticed the article in the Sun today, you did perceive correctly that I didn't like the striping on Wooddale. I think we made a mistake over there. But nonetheless, multimodal is an important factor for us. We need to be able to have bikes in our system. That's what the next generation is going to want. A lot of our seniors want it as well. They want to be able to get around in a non-motorized way, and it's extremely important that we meet all these mode requirements.
Okay, thank you. Why is Edina one of only a few cities to have a AAA rating? How do we stay fiscally sound? Mr. Hovland.
There's three big factors in a AAA bond rating. One is the size of the tax base relative to the population, and that's why redevelopment is really important. There's a wealth indices, which is the ability to pay taxes, and then there's your management. Do you do what you say you're going to do? Do you have surpluses or deficits? And what kinds of levels of debt do you have? We have been extraordinarily fortunate, I think, through prudent fiscal management, not only by the council but by staff, in making sure that our city functions well. And the AAA bond rating that we've been able to maintain through the recession is extraordinary. We're one of only about 3 cities in the United States our size that have this double AAA bond rating from both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Everybody in this room ought to be very, very proud of it. It sets us aside. It allows us to borrow money at a very reasonable rate, and it is something that I, as mayor, am very, very proud of.
Thank you. Ms. Masika.
As far back as I can remember, we have always been very fiscally conservative. My particular expertise was in business, so finances, economics, taxation, that is sort of my area of interest. And I would like to say that I helped keep our our AAA rating when I was on council. And we have, through good and careful management by staff and council, been able to keep that AAA rating, and I also am very proud that we have that.
Okay, thank you. What role should Edina play in the region, and what should the mayor do to advance that goal? Ms. Masika.
When you say in the region, I think that Edina has always been a leader in the things that it's done. Edina has been innovative in its development. I think it's been particularly careful to protect and cherish its neighborhoods. And I think that that's what most people look to for Edina. When they look, they don't look for huge commercial developments. They look for those neighborhoods that they can move into. We have school districts that are attractive. We have location that's attractive. We have public services. The minute there's a snowflake outside, it's removed. Drive over the line from Edina to Minneapolis, and you'll see the difference. I mean, physically, when you drive over to Minneapolis, there's all of these lumps and bumps and snow, and everything's piled up. But here, we are always well taken care of through careful management.
Mr. Hovland.
Here's why it's important for the mayor to play a critical role in the region. You need look no further than 169-494. That didn't happen by accident. That's the last big interchange project in the metro. That happened because the cities of Edina, Bloomington, and Eden Prairie, and cities that I work with all the way down to Mankato, because I chair the 169 Corridor Commission, worked on with MnDOT to try to make sure that that project got built. Beyond that, here's another reason it's important to be active in the region. Denver is number one in attracting 18 to 34-year-olds. We are number 39 in our region. As I said earlier, as goes the region, so goes Edina. We need to figure out strategies to attract people like 18 to 34-year-olds here, and that's one of the things that we're working on in the region. We also need to have strategies for attracting, growing, and retaining jobs. That's another thing that I'm working on in the region. I'm also working on an export strategy with a pilot within a pilot in Edina. That's another good reason to be active in the region, all for the benefit of Edina.
Thank you. Some communities sponsor a free pickup for large item disposal. Is this something you would support? Mr. Hovland.
I would not support that. Our Energy and Environment Commission has already looked at that notion. We don't have the same kinds of problems that Bloomington has, where people put things out on the curb and then they've got to come around and pick them up. When our Energy and Environment Commission looked at this issue, in Bloomington they spend $200,000 a year on this pickup. So what happens down there is not only do they have a significant cost, people put the old refrigerators out early, or they put them out late because they missed the pickup time. The scavengers come through the neighborhood at night from all over the metro and scavenge the copper out of the refrigerators or other appliances. Freon goes all over the road. We don't have problems like that in Edina. It's not an expense that we need. People here typically just call a hauler to come and pick up the things that are in the basement that they don't want anymore. I don't support that idea.
Linda Masika.
Well, I take the direct opposite tack. I very much support this. I think it's an innovation that Edina would do well by developing. I called Bloomington yesterday to ask what is each REU, each residential equivalent unit or person, charged per month on their bill, on their utility bill for this once a year pickup. It's $1.83. So really, I think it's a great advantage. You can take that old refrigerator that's in the basement, you can put it out on the curb, you can take that mattress that's not doing the air in your house any good, you can put it out on the curb. It will be picked up responsibly, and I don't know if Mayor Hovland walks a dog, but when I walk my dog, I walk it through areas that when you look in the weeds and the brush and that sort of thing, you look at and you can see old rocking chairs and refrigerators and things like that. So I think it would be a great service for the community. I'd like to see it, and it's not expensive.
Thank you. We have a question about coyotes and other wildlife, which have been a big issue in Edina. How should the city control wildlife? Ms. Masika.
Well, in the conference that the wildlife person or the animal humane, the person who runs the animal program in our city had, he mentioned that you cannot actually go out and shoot these animals. You cannot trap them and remove them, because what it does is when you remove the animals, it stimulates the pups to get to grow up and to have actually bigger and bigger litters to keep this population at a standard level. So it's a real problem. And the only thing that he suggested is that if you don't want coyotes on your property, you must harass them. Go out and shake a can full of shot or beads or something like that. They'll run off, they'll be afraid, they won't come back, but you cannot do anything to get rid of the animals because they will just reproduce more and more.
Mr. Hovland.
Well, I was chuckling to myself because one of the checks that I got for the campaign from a resident, on the memo line, it said, "Kill the coyotes." And I'm from North Dakota, where the only good coyote is a dead coyote. I do appreciate the strategy that we're employing, but I've had too many calls from people that have been stalked by coyotes when they're walking their small dogs. We have a strategy in place where we're going to try to eradicate some of the more dangerous ones. I've had people call me and tell me the coyotes have attacked their dogs on the back patio. So I am quite sensitive to the notion of cohabitating with coyotes. I mean, I just don't think it's possible. I don't know if I believe this idea that if you get rid of them, they'll breed more and they'll have bigger litters and then they'll come back. I'd like to try the eradication strategy, frankly.
Okay, thank you. How do you feel the city should use consultants? What are the costs of value of hiring consultants? Mr. Hovland.
That's a real broad question, and we when we did the comprehensive plan, we had consultants that helped us there. We had consultants help our citizen group over at the Grandview Square project, where we had 52 people on a self-selected on a steering committee that looked at how to recreate that whole area over there. So we use them on engineering projects when we need this particular expertise. We need to be judicious about how we use them. I think we are. Our staff is careful when they're retained. I think that in the case of the Grandview Square project led by Commissioner Staunton, they actually interviewed quite a few of the consultants and went through that selection process, I think, very thoroughly, and hired some very good consultants. And in that case, we had the money from the Met Council, $100,000 from the Met Council through a Livable Communities grant. So I hope that helps answer the question.
Thank you. Linda Masika.
Well, I think that we've kind of overdone it with the consultant hiring. We have staff. We have hired staff to give us information on what we need to do to go forward with development, whatever. I'm also kind of wondering about the economic development director that's been hired. Usually cities only do this, basically small towns, and they do it because they are completely underdeveloped, and we're a fully developed city. So why are we hiring for more than 6 figures an economic development director? We overdo it with the studies. It costs too much money. We have a lot of people in the city that can give us feedback. We have paid staff that can give us feedback, and the whole consultant thing has gotten out of hand.
Okay, thank you. Please share your opinion about neighborhoods and neighborhood associations in Edina. Ms. Masika.
You know, originally, I really, really liked the idea of neighborhood associations. And it was for selfish reasons, actually, that I liked it. And it was because that I was often a minority voice on council. And I wanted a way to be able to get to neighborhoods and kind of yell, fire, fire, you know, this is what's happening. We need to get together. We need to talk about this. We need to have some meetings. We need to find out, is this what you want? Is this what you don't want? So originally I liked it, but as I've been door knocking, I have had more people tell me, we don't want this other level of government. We don't want to be told that we should be forming these neighborhood groups. So basically, I have to tell you that most people in the community do not want these neighborhood groups.
Mr. Hovland.
I'll answer that question in a second. I just want to go back to that economic development director hire. We don't do development in our town, we do redevelopment, and you can't believe the amount of redevelopment activity that is surging in our town. It's like hiring a vice president of sales, and it's not coming out of the general levy. You are not paying for it in the sense that you'll be directly paying for it through your property taxes. We're allowed to pay for that position through the TIF funds that we have at Centennial Lakes of about $14 million. We can use 5% for that. As far as the neighborhood associations go, there have been neighborhood associations around in Edina for quite a while. Country Club has one, Morningside has one. They have their own neighborhood activities that they want to engage in. They're a great, effective method for communication. The neighborhood naming is a little bit of an unusual process, and I think we'll get there, but all of it was intended to help create a better sense of community. We're not going to a ward system here where eventually somebody is going to say, well, I think you should have a council person just representing Morningside. Everybody here, I think, is on the council is tuned into the idea that everyone should represent everyone's interests in the whole community. So these things have their purpose.
Thank you. Do you support the efforts of neighborhoods in Edina to change school district boundaries? Mr. Hovland.
To me, it's a simple, there's a simple answer to it. To me, all Edina kids ought to be able to go to school in Edina. And that's the bottom line principle for me. I've told the folks up in what's called Unite 273, you may have seen the signs up on Blake Road and elsewhere up in northwest Edina. There are a lot of families up there supportive of the notion that they want to make sure that their kids have a chance to go to school in Edina and that they don't have to go to school in Hopkins based on some ancient line that was drawn to help make sure that we had some sort of distribution of children. It is something that I will work hard with that neighborhood on to try to accomplish that end result, but I think it's going to depend in large part on whether Hopkins wants to let them go, and it's 8% of the Hopkins budget. So this is, we got some heavy lifting to do, but I would love the idea, and I think the school district would love having these kids all in Edina, because I think it'll create such a great sense of community. I really miss, I feel like those people in northwest Edina are a little bit disengaged from our town. I don't like that idea.
Ms. Masika.
To get back to the neighborhood naming groups, I can understand how that works in Minneapolis because they're so big and they need to have some different areas of communication, some way to identify themselves. But here, I think that we're all Edina. So I'm not sure that we need to be able to set ourselves off. About the Unite 273, I completely support that. These lines were historically drawn around old farmsteads where, say, farmer so-and-so, he had 10 kids, so we're going to put him in Hopkins, and this other farmer has 10 kids, and so we're going to put him in Edina. So historically, that doesn't work anymore, and I would like to see the lines matching up with the school district and the city.
Thank you. Given the success of area farmers markets, excuse me, what would you do to increase access to healthy local foods? Linda Masika.
Well, I think it's great that we have the farmers markets that we do in town. They're fun to go to. They have not only great healthy food that you can have, but there's also in Edina something called a CSA, which my family happens to belong to, so that you don't even have to go to the farmer's market if you don't want to, but you can order this CSA that comes to a place that you go and you pick it up, and it's a big box full of different things every week. It's different vegetables, and everything is fresh and organic, and great opportunity to be able to get that, and I'm just really glad to see that there are different ways that you can access this fresh food.
Mr. Hovland.
Thank you. The farmers market is very consistent with this new wellness strategy that we have in Edina called DoTown. Ways that we are trying to figure out how to help our residents live longer, better lives. And one of the offshoots of our regular farmers market at Centennial Lakes is a desire on the part of the hospital at Fairview Southdale to have their own farmers market. So the council approved that, and next spring they're going to start that farmers market activity over at Fairview Southdale. This is a great addition to our community, and it's going to help them quite a bit. They are working on their own strategies internally in terms of trying to help people live healthier lives. We need to have a multi-pronged strategy on this challenge of obesity and smoking, even in Edina, where people are pretty healthy. We need to be working on this. And this is an extension, a logical extension, I think, of the farmers market concept.
Okay, thank you. This will be our last question this evening. Excuse me, if I can say it. Solar panels on City Hall are a great example of clean, reliable, decentralized energy. As mayor, what would you propose to move toward a greater energy independence for the city and its residents? Mr. Hovland.
That's a lofty goal, and but a good one. We are leading. I think our community is leading the state in energy initiatives and energy innovation. The solar panels up on the roof are a good example of it. This property assessed clean energy program that we put in. We got an award from the Environmental Initiatives group at the state. We are winning awards right and left for the environmental work that we're doing. We are also trying to reduce the carbon in the city. We've got a baseline measurement now. Our Energy and Environment Commission is working hard to try to figure out ways in our municipal operations that we can reduce our petroleum consumption and reduce our carbon footprint. It will be a long haul to be able to accomplish what this question implies, but we are working on it. And this is an example of something that started at the local level. Worldwide, this has started at the local level through the U.S. Conference of Mayors in the United States to try to deal with this issue of global warming, and I'm proud of the work that we're doing in this area.
Linda Masika.
Well, I don't think there's any of us that don't want to see the price of alternative energies coming down. We hope that this is something that will be worked on and developed and that we can make better use of. As soon as that price starts coming down, people are going to be fist fighting to see who can get that energy into their home. Right now, the price is a bit high, and so we haven't been able to get to that price point yet where it really is working in a value-oriented way for our homes, but we're hoping to get there, and I know that at some point we'll be able to harness the wind, the sun, and other future forms of energy that we're not even aware of at this point. So we're hoping that all works out and comes out, and that people keep working on that, and that we can reach that goal.
Thank you. Now it's time for closing remarks, and we will begin with Jim Hovland.
Thank you. You know, I think over the past 8 years, we've really created some unprecedented transparency and opportunity for city engagement in our community, and I'm really proud of it. When I think about what I'm most proud of, it's that relationship that's been built with people to help advance our town. We took a great town and made it even better by engaging people in a new way that's never been done before. And the Grandview Square exercise was a classic example of self-selection by 52 people who heard the call to come out and vision for that particular area. That is something that no other city has done, to my knowledge. So the goal for the next 4 years for me is to continue this kind of citizen engagement, because this is what, in my opinion, has created the situation where we have a 98% approval rate in our town. This is why 98% of the people are saying this is a great place to live. This is why 92% of the people are saying this is the way forward. And I'm hoping that you will heed that advice from our constituency and vote to re-elect me so I can continue to lead this great town for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Masika.
Well, Jim, I hope you don't take this in the wrong way, but after 16 years in office, I think that your thinking has gotten a bit stale and a bit rigid. I think that you're depending way too much on your friends and advisors, and that you're not listening enough to the public. When the public is speaking, when you go outdoor knocking and they're telling you things that maybe your friends haven't told you and that you don't want to hear, I think it's time that you step back for a while, take a rest, become more engaged in what is happening with the citizens of this town. And I think basically at this time, even when I go to the work sessions and I see you leading the work sessions, I'm not sure who's leading the work sessions. When I'm going to when I see council on TV and I'm watching issues, I also see your colleagues are basically leading the meetings. So I think it's time for a little bit of leadership for a change.
Thank you. This concludes our forum for this evening. I would like to thank each of the candidates for participating and your willingness to participate in the democratic process by running for office. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Jim.
I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters of Edina for sponsoring this forum. It will be rebroadcast on the community channel on Tuesdays at 11 p.m. and Wednesdays at 7 a.m. until the election. Also, you may view it at www.edinamn.government. For more information, you can check the League of Women Voters of Minnesota website at lwvmn.org, and please vote on November 6th. Thank you all.